Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Welcome to another video. Today's video we're talking about Manchester United. Now this video was sparked by obviously United's 2-0 defeat to Newcastle yesterday, in which Eddie Howe's side came out of 2-0 winners, taking all 3 points thanks to goals from Joe Willock and Callum Wilson, a result which obviously had big implications for the race for the top four. The top four battle heats up, it intensifies even more, and it did see Newcastle leapfrog Manchester United in the table up to third, and it meant that anything goes as far as obviously United being dragged back into a top four battle, Newcastle leaping up to third. Tottenham obviously played tonight. There's still Liverpool possibly in the mix depending on if they can sort their form out. Brighton and Brentford are also lingering around as well. The top four race continues to heat up after this weekend, and obviously the big game was the Manchester United game in which they lost 2-0 to Newcastle. And that's where the main motive of this video comes into play, because as much as obviously I want to talk about the top four battle, and I will do at a future point, I want to talk about Manchester United. I briefly touched upon them in previous videos, but I want to find out really what the overall consensus and what the overall feeling is, mainly from neutral and rival fans in regards to Manchester United and the season that they are currently going through. Obviously, this is seen as the beginning of the Erik Ten Hag rebuild, and it's already been a pretty good season so far for Manchester United from the looks of things, where they are in the table, the trophy they've already won, and the trophies that might be potentially on the horizon by the end of the campaign should obviously things go their way. I just want to kind of get the feeling of where people think they're at and what maybe their overall opinions are in terms of this Erik Ten Hag rebuild. Has it been a massive success, and is it sustainable? That's the key one. Is it sustainable for the long run? We're going to be talking about Manchester United, Erik Ten Hag, and the future that may be held for the club, obviously with a massive takeover seemingly looming on the horizon. But before we get into all of that, we'd like to remind you to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are always and very greatly appreciated. And of course, to also get involved in the comment section as well. Your thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, I'm sure will all make for interesting reading on this particular topic. But for now, let's get into the video. Let's talk about this. Let's talk Manchester United. Now, let's say it first and foremost. As a Liverpool fan, I hate it. As a Liverpool fan, I hate where we're currently at right now. I hate it even more that I look up and I see Manchester United kind of enjoying a good start to the rebuild under Erik Ten Hag. They've already won a trophy. They've possibly got 2 more trophies, like I say, lined up before the end of the season that they possibly could take, and probably are one of the favourites to take in both of those competitions. I absolutely hate it, but I want to try and be as neutral and as honest as I can in this video to kind of give my 2 cents on what I believe to be the case with Manchester United right now. So United are currently in the top 4. They're currently well within the top 4 race. That obviously could change tonight should Tottenham beat Everton. If Tottenham beat Everton, anything's possible with Tottenham, isn't it? But yes, at the time of recording, United are in the top 4. They're well within the top 4 race. They've already won the League Cup, as I alluded to earlier, and they are possibly one of the favourites to go on and win the FA Cup. They're of course in the FA Cup semi-final. They've got Brighton to try and get past in the semi-final. That's going to be a very intriguing game when that comes around very, very soon. And then they probably will have Manchester City in the final. A Manchester derby awaiting us in the FA Cup final could be very intriguing as well, should obviously things go to that plan there. But of course, like I say, we've got a long way. Another game to go before then in the semi-final for both of those clubs. And then of course you look at the Europa League, and the Europa League, you would imagine United are probably one of the, if not the favourites to go on and lift that trophy as well. Obviously probably the biggest or big club in that competition, and that means they have a safety net in terms of qualifying for next season's Champions League. Should they fall out the race for the top 4, they've got the Europa League to fall back on, and vice versa. You would imagine that in some way, shape or form, Manchester United are going to qualify for the Champions League for next season, whether it's through the Premier League in terms of domestic league qualifying through getting a top 4 place, or whether it's going to be through winning the Europa League. United should be in the top, the Champions League for next season. So that's the kind of season that has played out so far. That's the kind of overall brief kind of look into the season so far, and obviously what might be on the horizon for Manchester United going forward. I don't think a lot of people had them to get this far in the competition. I don't think a lot of people had them, whether it be through the domestic cups, getting to where they have gotten, or even in the Europa League, maybe to get them where they've got right now as well, and all balancing that whilst also putting together a top four charge. I don't think a lot of people had that either, and I don't think a lot of people had that separately because I don't think a lot of people had them within the top four. I don't think a lot of people put them within their top four predictions before the season even began. I think a lot of people maybe had them in their top six, maybe top seven at most. I think I maybe had them as top seven. I think I had them maybe seventh, sixth, one of them two. I didn't. I was with a lot of people and didn't think that their rebuild would be as quick as what it is, and I think they are ahead of schedule in that regard. I think that Erik Ten Hag has done a great job in that regard to get them to where they're at, to be competing on multiple fronts. And to also be balancing it out. I know he's got a very small squad, and we'll touch upon the squad a little later, but it seems to be working right now for the most part. It seems to be working right now for the most part, and some way, shape, or form. Like I say, he's getting the job done, and is ahead of schedule because a lot of people would not have predicted United to get this far in the league or any of the cups that they've been participating in across the entirety of the campaign. Now, as much as you can't really take away from Manchester United, you also can't overlook the fact that the likes of Liverpool and Chelsea have been underperforming this season, and that has helped contribute to Manchester United getting further along as well. And obviously United have taken advantage of that. That's not on them, that's not on anybody but the teams that I've talked about that are underperforming. But you can't take away or overlook that fact. That is a fact that has happened. We all expected Liverpool and Chelsea to probably be above Manchester United this season. That obviously hasn't played out so far. Now, so that's basically in regards to this season. That's in regards to when you look at it briefly in terms of this season. Like I say, they're still well within in the running for top four. They're probably one of the favourites, probably the favourite to achieve top four. I think a lot of people probably had them to secure top four, but they've seemingly been drawn into the top four race, and I think a lot of that is down to their away form. You look at yesterday's performance against Newcastle at St James's Park, obviously a very tough place to go. Newcastle have only lost twice this season to the same club in Liverpool. Newcastle, very tough side, and obviously they have got top four locked within their crosshairs as well. Very tough game, and United just didn't handle it. They just didn't handle it, and maybe it's because of their away form. If you have a look at their away form, particularly against the big clubs, there's a bit of a chink in the armour there, and obviously this is an armour that Erik Ten Hag is trying to rebuild. He's trying to recreate going forward as this force for Manchester United. Away from home seems to be a bit of a problem. They lost 2-0 yesterday to Newcastle at St James's Park. A few weeks ago, they lost 7-0 to Liverpool when the Reds put them to the sword in that game. They've also lost to Manchester City away from home this season. They've lost to Arsenal away from home this season. I think they've even lost to Brentford or Brighton. One of those two, maybe even both of those teams away from home this season. I think they've struggled in various games as well. They might not have got the best performances out of themselves away from home in certain games. And I believe the Fulham game right before the international break in the FA Cup, I think they're away from home in that one as well before obviously a complete capitulation occurred there for Fulham. And obviously United took advantage of that and obviously went on to beat a 9-man Fulham side on that day coming from a goal behind. Away from home, there seem to be some problems. It's understandable because Erik Ten Hag was never going to have a magic wand to fix everything overnight. It wasn't going to be an instantaneous fix from Ten Hag or on this United side that had obviously been very much down in the dirt for a number of years, and obviously last season was better left to be forgotten about as far as what United were concerned and everything. So it was never going to be an easy fix. It was never going to be a cheap fix. But yesterday just showed that there's still a long way to go in terms of Manchester United's rebuild. I think a lot of United fans have been accused of this season maybe getting a bit too ahead of themselves. I think they've over-exaggerated a little bit the terms of maybe the quality of football at times, maybe in terms of the fact that they're going to walk over teams, especially when it came to that Liverpool game a few weeks ago. A lot of United fans thought they were going to just turn up and walk all over Liverpool, considering the season that they've had. That obviously was never going to be the case, regardless of how poorly Liverpool were. But I just think that there's a long way to go for United in terms of this rebuild, and like I say, I think yesterday showed that more. I touched upon obviously the small squad size. I touched upon some of the good fortune. I think that United have had some good fortune over the past several weeks. The Fulham game, especially, good fortune. I know that you can also pinpoint some bad fortune or bad strokes of luck in terms of Manchester United, whether it be penalties that should have been given for them that wasn't, whether it be certain teams needing to go down to 10 men because the referee failed to send someone off or failed to spot something or whatever the case may be. But there have been a bit of good fortune as well, whether it be a self-destruction from Fulham in the FA Cup or whether it be a stroke of genius or a moment from a player. And let's face it, when you look at their squad depth, it's not strong enough. Their squad depth is not strong enough. And like I say, it was never going to be something that was rectified completely overnight. But when you look at Casemiro in particular, Manchester United are a completely different side when he's not there in comparison to when he is. When he's there, there's leadership, there's awareness, there's just this calmness, this just look to Casemiro as just this titan, this colossus that just stands in the middle of the pitch and orchestrates the side around him. He's a general. He just looks the part, and he is just a great leader. And then you take that away, and then it's chaos. It's chaos. There's a lack of leadership there. There's a lack of awareness, and United don't look the same as they do when obviously without him. That's a massive miss. And obviously for the past few months, when he's been suspended, you can clearly tell the difference between when Casemiro is there to when Casemiro isn't there. And I think that a lot of it is a bit of good fortune. I think United have had the likes of David De Gea and Marcus Rashford in particular to kind of bail them out. I think David De Gea has been great for the majority of this season. Obviously a few hairy moments here and there, but I think again he's saved United a lot of points, and I think Marcus Rashford has obviously won United a lot of points through his goals and a few of his assists, because I think since the World Cup he's been outstanding. Probably in the shout for one of the players of the season, definitely. I think he's been great. But again, it just shows you how far football can come over these past 12 months, because last season, this time last year, a lot of United fans were calling for Rashford to be sold. Were calling for Rashford to be given away. Were pleading with PSG to come in with a massive, monumental, big money offer for him so they can get rid of him. Obviously, his contract was running down as well. His form didn't look like it was going to pick up. But fair play to both Rashford and Erik Ten Hag for helping to rediscover his form. And he's gone from strength to strength this season, and he seems to be better than ever. Like I say, De Gea, another one who's obviously saved United a lot of points this season. It's them three players in particular have really helped United's season. They've been the main catalyst of United's season. The problem you've got, like I say, is there's no one to come in for Casemiro. There's no adequate replacement for Casemiro. And like I say, he's going to be missing for another couple of domestic games as well, and they've got a couple of big games coming up at that. So that's going to be interesting to see if United can kind of steady the ship, so to speak. Rashford, if he's not firing, who else is there? Wout Weghorst obviously come in January, playing off vibes. I understand it because it was an interesting kind of way of playing him. It wasn't the kind of typical way of playing Weghorst that we all kind of thought that Erik Ten Hag would go with as the main target man just to stand up front or whatever, but he's played him slightly differently to what I think a lot of people would expect. Interesting, and you can kind of see the thought process and the plan there, and maybe if they get an upgrade in the summer, you can kind of see where Ten Hag wants to play that kind of player and how he wants to play that kind of player in the kind of a cog in the machine kind of thing of the rest of the team. But he's just not good enough, obviously. Like, there's just and obviously they're relying on Anthony Martial not to be injured again. And let's face it, he's been very, very injury prone going forward. There's just, like I say, there's just a lack of squad depth there. Anthony, I guess jury's still out a little bit on him, despite the fact that he cost an arm and a leg and a kidney. Yeah. There's just a squad depth there that lacks. And once you take out the kind of main players of that, the thing falls apart, in my opinion. And then Bruno Fernandes, it'd be good one week, it'd be bad the next. It'd be good, bad, good, bad. Bit inconsistent, but when he's good, he's really good. I get that. Although he is very mardy and honestly just whines a lot. But apart from that, when he's good, he's good. But I don't know, from what I've seen in the past few months, bit inconsistent in that regard. They missed Christian Eriksen, obviously, through injury, but injuries do happen to every team at major points in the season. It just happens. Like I say, there's just a lack of squad depth there, and it was understandable going into it. I think the quality of football over the past few months has obviously deteriorated. Maybe it was because of all the injuries and everything, and a lack of depth, particularly in that midfield area. You bring in Sabitzer, can't do it all on his own. Like I say, he's only just come into this squad as well. I think it was obviously needed to kind of beef up that particular area, whether he was like the first choice or not, or whether he was just someone that they brought in just to kind of cover that position. I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to wait and see if obviously this loan move does turn to a permanent one or whatever the case may be. But I don't think the quality of football has been that great in recent months either. I think United have just been getting away with it a little bit in terms of just vibes and things. But on the flip side of that, it is developing a winning mentality. And that is one of the most difficult things. Like, it's difficult to impose a style. It is difficult to impose your philosophy on a squad and get them to play how you imagine football should be played. It's another thing to get them to just win games when they're not playing very well. And United have done that. And that is scary that United can do that with a squad that clearly isn't the best, clearly is not the finished article, clearly is still going through this transition and this rebuild, and still managing to win games despite the fact they're not playing particularly well. So for the past few weeks, you've seen it against other clubs as well. Just not perfect. They've been clinical in certain games. I remember like the League Cup. I don't think they played amazing in that League Cup game. I think that they kind of relied more on Newcastle making mistakes and Newcastle not being particularly clinical and as prolific up front. And then they just took advantage and they countered and they were more clinical and they were more prolific up front and they got the win and they got the trophy at the end. In certain games, it's been like that. Football hasn't been great, but they've managed to just spark those moments of quality when they needed it most to obviously go on and get the goals that they needed to win the games. And Marcus Rashford, like I said before and alluded to, has been the main forefront of that. But it is a very difficult thing to ingrain, and it begins that winning mentality, and eventually that will probably snowball. If that continues, it will snowball, and then eventually everything will fall into place. The philosophy will be there, the players will obviously come, and they'll all gel in, and that might just be the foundation and the setting stone and the core of what this team needs going forward. Because we've seen in the past, United don't play well, but lose games. This season, I think we've seen a lot more of United, maybe not playing well, but winning games. Especially in recent months. That's what we've seen. Especially when the injuries started to happen, the squad started to thin out a little bit more than what it normally is. But it is a good sign going forward, in my opinion, as much as I hate to say it. And obviously, with this massive takeover thing on the horizon, look, they'll be hoping that it gets done and dusted very, very quickly. Because as soon as it does, they'll be hoping there's a massive war chest that's going to come through at the end of the season. And I think, although they need to shift out maybe a few players and a few bits of deadwood in that squad, there'll be a lot more coming in. And with obviously Champions League football, that's going to make them an even more exciting prospect, an exciting club to obviously join. There are bright things on the horizon for Erik Ten Hag and for Manchester United to look forward to. I think there's a bit of a long way to go about it, and I'm just intrigued to know what the thoughts and comments, opinions, predictions, feelings are of rival fans, of neutral fans alike. Because, like I say, in my opinion, as much as I hate to say it, there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot to be optimistic about if you're a Manchester United fan, especially with the takeover and with the way that Erik Ten Hag has started his Manchester United career. I think you can't read too much into the previous results away from home especially. There are obviously going to be chinks in the armour that he's going to have to be... there's going to have to obviously iron out, so to speak. But at the same time, like I say, as much as I hate to say it, it's gone according. United are ahead of schedule. United are ahead of schedule in this, and I've alluded to that in previous videos. But I don't think I've gone into a bit more detail into it in this video. But like I say, those are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of Manchester United this season? That be, and obviously their defeat yesterday to Newcastle. I thought Newcastle fully deserved it, by the way. I thought Newcastle were great. I thought Newcastle fully deserved the 3 points and the victory. And maybe the only bad thing you could probably say about Newcastle yesterday was probably they didn't get more goals. David De Gea produced a few very, very good saves to deny Newcastle on a few occasions. And maybe 2-0 rather flattered United, so to speak. But regardless of that, I want to know what you guys think. I want to know what your guys' thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, on Manchester United are down below in the comments section. Otherwise, hit the like button on the right if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new. Want to see more content like this. Both things are always done for would be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so very much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video. And I'll see you all again soon in another video.